Mr. Stools! Speak to me! Mr. Stools! Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. It's only a couple days until the primary election in Pennsylvania, and of course all eyes are still on the Obama-Clinton campaign, and the future of Clinton's candidacy is certainly at stake in Pennsylvania. I was thinking today about various election scenarios, and it dawned on me that perhaps Obama might be the candidate of choice because a lot of people I've been hearing from have said that they'd rather vote for McCain than either of the Democratic candidates, but especially if their only choice is Obama. And it's ironic that today in the news, Obama says that McCain would be a far better choice for president than our current president, Bush, which could be a sort of a backward setup for the general election coming up in November, and McCain's ultimate winning thereof. Of course, any one of those alternatives is a fucking nightmare, but what do you have to choose from? So, as I've said before, I plan on voting for Ron Paul in the primary in Pennsylvania, and lacking any other choice, if Paul is not one in the general election in November, I plan on voting for Ralph Nader, because he's more close to what I think this country needs, and that is a crackdown on corporations and someone that's going to look out truly for the everyday person, not the elites who are running for office in the major parties, whether it be McCain, Clinton, or Obama, all elitists, all rich, all looking out their own best interests, not caring one shit about you. But for all of you who still love your candidates and think this time is going to be different, by God, you continue living in your fantasy little world. And then maybe a year from now or two, when things are still fucked up, you'll come to your senses. But I doubt it. That psychosis is pretty hard to break. Also in the news is this big deal with the Polygamist sect down in Texas. A friend of mine observed that any time they refer to somebody in the news as living on a compound, automatically that's a bad thing. Let's not forget that Janet Reno's definition of a cult describes about 90% of the population of the United States. So the polygamist sect is broken up, and it has been decided that the children are going to be separated from their families. May be a good thing if there's abuse going on, but what I find rather interesting in the whole fiasco is how the government has a double standard when it comes to determining allegations of abuse. It seems not too long ago, well actually several years ago, some of you might remember the McMartin preschool trial, and how the government's case fell apart because the defense alleged that psychologists and psychotherapists were coaching the children, and this led into the whole false memory syndrome and all of these other different pseudosciences, in my view. But in this case, the government is insisting on doing it all over again so they can separate the children and hammer away at them in an effort to get them to reveal what may or may not be factual regarding any alleged abuse that took place in that sect. Now, of course, if there was any child abuse going on, I think the guilty should be punished. to the maximum extent of the law, because child abuse is one of the most heinous crimes there is. But if you're going to be browbeating and haranguing children into coming up with stories to satisfy you before you'll let up, one has to wonder where that's coming from. You get the best evidence of child abuse from children without having to be coached by anybody. And in the McMartin preschool case, the children told freely of abuse prior to the psychotherapists and the psychoanalysts and everything else. And that's how they lost that case, even though I think they did have a case to begin with. And the children should have been believed from the very beginning. But so far I haven't heard any allegations of child abuse from the children themselves. So it's yet to be determined exactly what's going on there. Also, Sadr has declared that he may call for an all-out war in Iraq. And, of course, Iraq and Afghanistan are turning into bloody fucking nightmares for the United States and for the countries themselves and the people who live there. And the fact that Sadr has not dissolved his militia and, in fact, may go on the war path, as it were, prompted the ever-wonderful Condi Rice to make an unplanned trip to Iraq to prop up support over there. Isn't it wonderful? She just shows up and gives the government of Iraq a pat on the back. Well, that's going to solve a whole hell of a lot, isn't it? Yeah, well, I imagine more troops and more money is going to be funneled off into there. And, of course, what does that mean? A continued collapse of our own economy here in the U.S., which, strangely, has not been talked about all that much in the news these days. One wonders what kind of new thing is going to show its ugly head in place of the economy, which has dominated the news for so long. And finally, the Pope visits the United States and says, hey, sorry about all that clergy abuse of young boys. Sorry, let's just call it square and even. Say a couple prayers here or there. I guess that'll satisfy all of the young boys who were hurt and abused by their parish priests. Yeah, that'll take care of everything. Nice big sorry and a couple prayers from the big granddaddy of the Catholic Church. Everything's going to hell in a handbasket. This country is going from shit to more shit. The economy keeps falling down into the fucking toilet, and our imperial aggressions around the world are preparing to fail us. If we're not Rome in its last days now, we sure as fuck will be very, very soon. Thank you. Good night.